During its 2023 session, the Texas legislature passed about 800 laws. Many of them go into effect on Friday, September 1st. They cover education, school safety, elections, LGBTQ+ rights, crime, drivers, and much more. I'm Brandy Smith, and in this special, we're breaking down some of the new laws that will affect Texans from El Paso to Beaumont, Amarillo to McAllen, and everywhere in between, with the help of reporters in Dallas, Austin, Houston, and more. If you want a breakdown in print form, text the word laws to 713-526-1111, and we'll text you back a link to an article that spotlights dozens of those new laws. We're going to start in schools. A legal battle is heating up over House Bill 900, which would remove books with references about sex from school libraries. Bookstores in Austin and Houston are suing the state, saying the new requirements are vague and nearly impossible to follow. Isabella Basco talked to groups on both sides of this debate.
When you have these radically sexually explicit materials on the shelves, what does that do to our children when they're exposed to that?
Lawmakers in the Texas Capitol passed HB 900, a bill that goes into effect September 1st. It requires book vendors to assign ratings to books based on the presence of depictions or references to sex. Valerie Kaler owns Blue Willow Bookshop in Houston.
It could easily put our business out of business by having to spend the time, which is money, to rate these books. This whole idea of not just explicit sexual content, but sexual content or some sort of relevant content, we don't know. We don't know what that's supposed to mean. Is that two 15-year-olds kissing? I mean, we don't know. It's just very vague to us as to how we would do that.
That's why Book People in Austin, and National Bookseller Associations filed suit this week over the new law. Both CEOs of the bookstores say the amount of the books they'd have to rate is too many. But Cindy Castilla, who leads the conservative think tank Texas Eagle Forum, says vendors need to have an understanding of the products they are offering.
They should be cautious what they're putting in front of other people's children. That's the problem. It's other people's children that are having access to these books, not their own.
Sam Williams is the parent of a 4-year-old son in Llano County who's decided to homeschool his child because of recent politics.
Sex is something that humans are going to face kind of inevitably in some way or another. So to be informed about it and learn about it in a safe setting is important to me.
The Texas State Library and Archives Commission and the Texas Education Agency have until the beginning of January to create the guidelines for vendors. Then those businesses have 4 months to submit a list to the TEA or be barred from selling books to schools. In Austin, Isabella Basco.
House Bill 4520 says educators could lose their teaching certificate and be disqualified from receiving retirement benefits for selling, distributing, or displaying harmful material to a minor. The Crown Act bans race-based hair discrimination in Texas workplaces, schools, and housing policies. 2 students from the Houston area inspired the change in law after they were told to cut their hair or face discipline. Rekha Mudaraj caught up with folks who celebrated the bill's passage.
I think this is past due. We've been needing this.
Nori Johnson opened her natural hair salon in Edo almost a year ago. She's heard firsthand accounts from customers about their experiences wearing their hair in natural styles like braids, locks, or twists in the workplace.
We have people that say, oh, I don't want it too long, or I don't want it this way. I have to be conservative because I have an interview, or my graduation is coming up and I don't want to be told I can't walk.
Johnson herself understands the significance of the Crown Act, having worked in the medical field before starting her business and facing similar hurdles. Texas would become the latest state to enact the law in a movement inspired by the experience of 2 Houston area students who were told to cut their hair or be disciplined. This year, Dove co-commissioned a study with LinkedIn and found, among other things, that Black women's hair was 2.5 times more likely to be perceived as unprofessional, and more than 20% of the women surveyed had been sent home from work because of their hair, including Sydney Johnson.
My very first job, I worked at a theme park. And I actually was sent home one time because of the color of my hair. I had braids and it was a red color highlighted throughout the braids, and I was actually sent home because of it. My hair was neat, it was done. I looked professional in my personal opinion. And for me to have 8 colored braids throughout my head, and that be the reason that I was sent home, it just felt a little extreme.
Nori Johnson hopes the bill changes attitudes about what it means to look professional and helps bring more customers into her salon.
Senate Bill 2565 gives parents access to the materials teachers use to teach their kids. It also sets aside nearly $800 million to invest in open source, high quality instructional materials to save teachers on planning time. 100 Texas chaplains want schools to turn down an option coming in the form of Senate Bill 763. It lets districts decide if they want to create chaplain programs to help address students' mental health. Daranisha Heron spoke with an Austin rabbi who says chaplains are not qualified to take on that responsibility.
Senate Bill 763 could help Texas schools. The new law will require districts to say yay or nay to creating a chaplain program to provide mental health support to students.
That's not my area of expertise.
Austin Rabbi Kelly Levy is one of at least 100 chaplains who signed a letter Tuesday begging school districts to say no because they are not qualified.
I wouldn't want anybody to even ask me to go in to support these kids for the things that a school psychologist is there for.
SB 763 does not require any training or qualifications to be a school chaplain. You simply have to pass a background check. The Texas American Federation of Teachers disagree with the law too.
Professional standards and certifications exist for a very good reason, and this is one of them.
It'll also be up to the district to decide if the chaplains are paid or volunteers. If paid, the law allows schools to use school safety funds.
So a school district who's looking to minimize their budget in some ways might be thinking it's better to have a volunteer come in to support these children.
And another concern is the separation of church and state, which the bill's author, State Senator Mays Middleton, commented on during the legislative session.
As you referred to the separation of church and state, it's not an actual doctrine. That was in a letter from Jefferson to the Danbury Baptist, so it's not a real doctrine. What is a real doctrine is the Establishment Clause.
According to Middleton, at least 90% of chaplains are Christian, which worries Levy as a Jewish mother.
There is a great concern that there will be evangelizing from some of these chaplains, and I think that for those of us who are not part of the Christian world, we're worried.
The teachers union and this group of religious leaders hope school districts choose trained counselors instead of bringing religion into the classroom. In Austin, I'm Daranisha Heron.
School safety was also on the minds of lawmakers as they convened a year after the Uvalde school shooting. They passed House Bill 3, requiring an armed guard on every campus. Jobin Paniker showed us how the law created challenges for some districts.
Public schools are no stranger to deadlines and tests. By September 1st, every public school in Texas must have an armed guard. Part of House Bill 3, signed in response to the tragedy in Uvalde.
I think the concept was good.
Doug Williams is the former superintendent with Sunnyvale ISD. He says most every district right now is facing tough decisions on security.
Not only is it a mandate, but we consider it to be an unfunded mandate.
Doug says this will hurt large districts and very small ones to find the money and the personnel.
I say you need armed security.
This bill has put you all in a very tough position.
The state's safety allotment combined with the $15,000 per campus is only a fraction of what it will cost a district. Districts will have to find the money somewhere. LMP Global Security is a North Dallas firm already contracted with schools. They keep getting calls from districts scrambling for help.
They're all interested in it. A little late to the party, but they're interested in it.
And that interest has security firms scrambling to find guards who can be trained and in time.
That's a problem we are trying to fix, but the good thing is that we have a very good staff in this office which works tirelessly right now to hire good people, good talented people.
Districts that cannot afford an armed guard can claim for a, quote, good cause exception. Doug Williams worries about the message that sends if an incident happens on campus.
So I think the fallout there would be, you didn't do everything you could do to protect my child. And I cannot imagine dealing with that situation.
The next few days and weeks are a full-on scramble to find funding, to find guards, to keep staff, teachers, students, parents happy, and keep lawmakers in Austin content. In Dallas, I'm Jobin Paniker.
In August, the San Antonio ISD School Board voted to file for an exemption to House Bill 3. At the time, the district chief said he has 58 officers on staff and 10 open positions. He said even if the district were to fill those spots, there wouldn't be enough officers for every campus. The exemption filed by the board will last for 2 years until the next legislative session. Senate Bill 990 requires that providers of active shooter training at public schools and institutions of higher education be certified by the Texas Commission on Law Enforcement. In higher education, the University of North Texas dissolved its diversity office to align with a new state law that eliminates diversity, equity, and inclusion offices at public universities. That would be Senate Bill 17. Adriana de Alba pressed UNT's president about what the change means for students.
As the University of North Texas celebrated its newly branded DATQ Stadium,
Go Mean Green.
Another major shift at the university hovered in the background. Tuesday, UNT President Neil Smotrisk announced its diversity office, which has been around for 23 years, is being eliminated. It's a response to a new state law requiring all public colleges and universities to dissolve them.
My immediate reaction was disappointment.
Dr. Anna Hinton teaches Black culture and disability studies in the English department at UNT.
I'm concerned.
We approached President Smotrisk about the decision at Tuesday's ceremony.
Yeah, I don't think this is the right time or place to address that. I'll simply say we have Senate Bill 17. We're working on complying with it.
By definition, diversity, equity, and inclusion programs include strategies, policies, and practices that aim to foster equitable treatment toward historically underrepresented groups. Practices that include workshops, scholarships, and cultural programs.
These are going to have far-reaching implications that people don't even quite grasp yet.
The university will reorganize its Multicultural Center, Pride Alliance, and other programs. Title IX and Equal Opportunity offices will relocate. Here's UNT Athletic Director Jared Mosley.
A lot of back and forth around what the state law is outlined and what they expect from us in athletics with some of the obligations we had with the NCAA, so we'll continue to work through those together.
President Smotrisk saying UNT will provide the support all students need. The big question moving forward is how. In Denton, I'm Adriana de Alba.
Senate Bill 1517 prohibits public colleges and universities from implementing academic boycotts of foreign countries if it prevents students and faculty from conducting research or interacting with their scholars. A university may only boycott a foreign country if the country is on the U.S. State Department's list of state-sponsored terrorism. Universities may not prevent students from studying in these countries, though. Senate Bill 18 addresses tenure at Texas public universities. The Senate originally passed a bill to ban tenure, but ended up going with the House's counterproposal. It permits tenure, but doesn't require it. The law also offers an official definition of tenure, and it establishes a performance evaluation process. The law's supporters say it will hold public university professors accountable.
I just have to hearken back to the fall of last year, when a group of professors on a Senate faculty at the University of Texas said, we do not have to listen to the Board of Regents or the legislature. I hope they're hearing us clearly now. They are accountable to the public like all of us.
Tenured UT professor David DeMatthews calls the language for firing too vague, which makes some professors fearful to take risks and be innovative.
Any undermining of that tenure system, especially when every other state or almost every other state is not doing those things, it's really going to hurt Texas's ability to compete and be innovative and really take serious action to help improve society, which is the goals of Texas public universities.
Lawmakers also tackled issues affecting LGBTQ+ Texans, and these bills all face legal opposition, like Senate Bill 12, which criminalizes sexually explicit shows performed in front of children and the businesses that host those shows. The bill classifies the use of accessories or prosthetics that exaggerate male or female sexual characteristics as sexual conduct. Opponents of the bill argue this will unfairly target members of the LGBTQ+ community, specifically drag performers.
Texas politicians are using hate and fear to come after the LGBTQIA+ community and ban or limit drag performances while ignoring the very real problems Texans are facing. Drag has always been a form of free expression, and for many performers, like myself, it allows us to earn a living while connecting with our community.
The ACLU filed a lawsuit opposing the bill. As we're recording this on August 29th, the case is being heard in a federal court. Similarly, we are awaiting the Texas Supreme Court's decision on Senate Bill 14. That law bans transgender youth from receiving gender-affirming care. After a lawsuit, an injunction, and an appeal, the law's fate is up to Texas's highest court. Before it got to that point, Malia Masumoto went inside the courtroom to hear arguments from both sides.
With just weeks to go before Senate Bill 14 takes effect, some civil rights groups are worried about its possible impact on transgender children in Texas.
We witnessed an unprecedented number of anti-LGBTQ bills. Over 140 were filed here in Texas. Among the 7 that were signed into law, SB 14 promises to cause the most harm.
Back in June, Governor Greg Abbott signed Senate Bill 14, which will ban doctors from performing certain procedures and giving treatments for gender transitioning and gender dysphoria to minors in Texas. Civil rights groups like the American Civil Liberties Union oppose the bill. They say transgender children in Texas will not have access to safe and effective medical treatment.
These bills harm transgender youth and their families. And bills that harm any Texan harm all Texans.
Families, 3 doctors, and 2 equality organizations filed the lawsuit against the state back in July, asking for a temporary injunction of SB 14 before it goes into effect on September 1st. Author of SB 14, Senator Donna Campbell, put out a statement in response to the lawsuit last month. She said, "The lawsuit filed seeking to prohibit the enforcement of Senate Bill 14 is not unanticipated, but we are confident the law is on our side and that any attempts to overturn this legislation will ultimately be unsuccessful." She also wrote, "We believe it is the sworn duty of the Texas legislature to protect the safety of the children of our state, including from well-meaning but misguided physicians." But opponents of SB 14 say they will keep fighting back regardless of what the court's outcome is.
If that happens, and if the Texas Attorney General continues to waste taxpayer dollars trying to defend this indefensible law, we are prepared to show every step of the way that this law is discriminatory and violates many of the rights that we all hold most dear.
In Austin, I'm Malia Masumoto.
When we get an update on those cases against SB 12 and SB 14, we'll share them here at khou.com/politics. Protesters showed up in Denton in August when Governor Abbott celebrated signing a bill impacting transgender athletes. It forces them to align with their gender assigned at birth when participating in public college sports. And as William Joy found, the issue continues to divide Texans.
Outside Texas Women's University, frustration was on full display. Inside its library,
the Save Women's Sports Act is now law in the state of Texas.
The mood was a celebration.
We're here because women's sports are threatened across the entire country.
Governor Greg Abbott did a ceremonial signing of SB 15, a bill that restricts what teams transgender college athletes can be on.
Texas will stop at nothing to continue to protect women's sports for women.
We continue to harm Texas families for political, talking points.
Representative Vinton Jones is part of the LGBTQ caucus and represents Southern Dallas. He and advocacy groups say more than 140 bills this session targeted LGBTQ communities, from drag shows to transgender care and athletics.
And as a state, it disappoints me that we're continuing to interject ourselves in the living rooms and decision makings of Texans' families.
SB 15 mirrors a ban in K-12 schools passed 2 years ago and applies to both NCAA sports and club or intramurals. Its direct impact is unclear. Transgender college athletes are extremely rare. I asked Governor Abbott about similar bills in other states already facing lawsuits to block them.
As a former Attorney General of Texas, I will tell you this. Texas will vigorously defend this law in court, and we will win.
With Democrats far outnumbered in the legislature, litigation is the only potential roadblock to passing similar laws.
We have to continue to fight and have to continue to show that these bills are unconstitutional.
In Denton, I'm William Joy.
Now let's talk elections. 2 bills passed specifically target Harris County. It's the only one of the state's 254 counties affected by SB 1933 and SB 1750. Adam Bennett explained the impact of the latter.
Is it possible to work more smoothly with our state government?
Less than 2 months before voters in the state's largest city choose their newest mayor, there's a major shakeup in the way Houston's main county runs elections after the Texas Supreme Court ruled a contested new law can take effect September 1st.
I'm incredibly disappointed.
Harris County Attorney Christian Menefee sued the state over Senate Bill 1750. It eliminates the elections administrator position in Texas counties with more than 3.5 million people. Only Harris County comes close to qualifying. Menefee says the state constitution doesn't allow laws to target only one city or county.
This is exactly what Republican legislators wanted to do. They wanted to put us in this tough situation.
Republican Senator Paul Bettencourt said he filed the bills after problems during Harris County elections under 2 different election administrators. Those included malfunctioning voting machines and paper ballot shortages. He said, quote, "This bill has always been about performance, not politics." Tax assessor collector Ann Harris Bennett is expected to handle voting registration, while County Clerk Tanisha Hudspeth is expected to handle election administration. Both have prior experience with those duties, and both released statements vowing to work toward a smooth experience for voters. I was told both were unavailable for interviews today and focusing on the transition.
The county's already been operating on parallel tracks. We had both the lawsuit and transition meetings going on behind the scenes.
As for SB 1933, it gives the Texas Secretary of State the authority to investigate election irregularities if complaints are filed. Senate Bill 1661 allows counties to continue to use the vote counting equipment at the center county station that they already have, as opposed to upgrading to a system that, quote, once a cast vote record is written, is incapable of being modified. And Senate Bill 1599 removes some of the obstacles in casting a mail-in ballot in Texas that could lead to the ballot being rejected. Election officials are required to notify voters of errors on their mail-in ballot application or mail-in ballot. It also requires election officials to instruct voters on how to return their corrected forms by mail, in person, or through the state's online tracking tool. Up next, bills addressing crime in Texas. Life-saving resources will now be given to anyone impacted by domestic or dating violence, stalking, and other offenses. It's part of the Natalia Cox Act, or Senate Bill 1325. The new law came about as part of her parents' mission to honor their daughter's legacy. Eric Pointer spoke to them about their journey.
Natalia Cox's parents, Lester and Lakeisha, missed their daughter.
Oh gosh. She was my baby that always had me laughing.
Her life was cut short by someone she barely knew. But now, they'll have more than cell phone videos to remember her by. Because they helped get a law passed in her honor.
Everything that she stood for, her values, I think, are encompassed in the bill, and all the countless lives that she's going to save.
Their daughter was killed by someone she had only gone on 2 dates with. He threatened her with a gun at her home. She tried to move out of her apartment, but her complex hit her with so many fees she couldn't afford to leave, and she didn't know about the resources available to help her get out.
We really feel like if you look back at the situation, what could have been a situation changer was just the knowledge of having, knowing her rights.
The Natalia Cox Act will help victims of domestic violence, stalking, harassment, and terroristic threat all across the state. It will require law enforcement and healthcare professionals to give them written information with details on how to get out of a dangerous situation, such as their rights to get a protective order or break a lease.
And that's a moment where you're in crisis. It's difficult to process information when you're in crisis, so having this in writing is going to be so helpful.
Bronwyn Blake is the Chief Legal Officer at the Texas Advocacy Project. They provide free legal services to survivors, including help getting protective orders.
Protective orders save lives. It is a piece of paper, but they're statistically the most likely intervention to keep you safe. There are some studies that show protective orders are as much as 80% effective in keeping someone safe from future violence.
These 9 pages of SB 1325, bringing resources to people in their most dire time of need, came from State Senator Cara Alvarado.
Hearing the story, not just about what happened to her, but about her life and what a vibrant, young, energetic person she was, loved by many, and to know that we can make a difference here. And that's why we do this job.
Senator Alvarado was approached by House Representative Vicki Goodwin to carry the bill. Goodwin wrote the House version and
It is a testimony.
Presented Lester and Lakeisha with the resolution and the flag that was flown over the Capitol the day the bill was signed into law. Natalia's parents met with both lawmakers as they drafted their versions.
If they hadn't come to the Capitol and met with us, I don't think the bill would have gotten as far as it did. It wouldn't be law today. They turned their loss, their tragedy, into advocacy.
They also had support from law enforcement. Dallas County Constable Michael Orozco testified on behalf of the bill.
My testimony was 100% with emotion because I believe so much into this bill.
Constable Orozco says that he has past experience with similar situations, and he had already partnered with a lawmaker from the previous legislative session to get a similar law passed. It never made it out of the committee, but he never gave up.
We want to prevent incidences like Natalia Cox. It's unfortunate that this happened, but at the same time, we can turn this into a positive.
We're definitely grateful, but ultimately, of course, we'd rather have our daughter here.
And while it doesn't bring their daughter back, her parents say it does help to know that her name will be used to save others.
Lock it out! Lock it out!
A couple more bills aimed to protect victims of stalking and harassment. Senate Bill 1717 broadens the definition of and expands the repercussions for the criminal offense of stalking. House Bill 1427 expands the prosecution of harassment to include electronic communications from temporary or disposable phones. Senate Bill 128 is known as Caleb's Law. It imposes tougher penalties for child pornography and is named after Caleb Deal, the teen who vanished from North Texas in 2015 and is still missing. A family friend pleaded guilty to federal charges after photos of Caleb being sexually abused were found on his computer, and that person is considered a person of interest in Caleb's disappearance. And House Bill 3554 increases the penalty of human trafficking to a first-degree felony if the offense is committed at certain locations like schools, child care facilities, or shelters. Texas has a new law to help find missing children, and it's named for Athena Strand. House Bill 3556 created something called Athena Alerts. Nirali Jaiswal learned this system could be more effective than an Amber Alert.
With the Athena Alert, local law enforcement will be able to send a regional alert to your phone about a missing child without having to wait for confirmation of an abduction.
It gives us an avenue to quickly get that information out to the public without having to have all those other elements satisfied.
Smith County Sergeant Larry Christian says those elements include verifying if it was a kidnapping or abduction and if that child is in danger.
That often it takes 24 hours for a missing child case to be validated. And every second counts. Every second is so precious.
Senator Tan Parker is one of the sponsors of the Athena Alert bill. He says this bill was prompted by the death of 7-year-old Athena Strand in Wise County, who was allegedly kidnapped and murdered by a delivery driver. The Athena Alert helps the public and law enforcement to act quickly when a person has gone missing.
It'll stand in the gap so that when local law enforcement believes something is legitimate, they just know within an hour or two of a child being abducted, they can immediately jump on it.
If we can get that Athena alert out within the first hour of the actual report, it's huge. I mean, that's something that could potentially save a lot of lives of children.
The alert will go out to a 100-mile radius to where the actual offense took place.
It gives citizens the opportunity to see that this child is missing. It'll give a description of the child.
Senator Parker wants to emphasize that it won't take away from the Amber Alert. It is simply an additional tool for local law enforcement to utilize.
It's just a complementary piece of legislation that we think is in the best interest of child welfare and child safety here in the state.
Sergeant Christian says their first priority is keeping the public safe. And with this new tool implemented in September, it will help them better protect our community. I'm Nirali Jaiswal with CBS 19.
How to address the fentanyl crisis was also a top concern for lawmakers this session. They passed Senate Bill 867, which allows for the distribution of Narcan, a treatment for opioid poisoning, to Texas colleges and universities. And House Bill 6 allows a distributor to be charged with murder if someone dies after taking a fentanyl-laced drug. That's what happened to a 21-year-old Southeast Texas man. Ebony Coleman learned the bill is empowering Texas investigators.
I hate that it's come to this, because that means that enough people have died, enough people's kids have died for it to become this serious.
21-year-old Blaine Padgett's mother, Wendy Padgett, has endured every parent's nightmare. Blaine played football at Rice University, but in 2018, he died after he was sold a hydrocodone pill laced with fentanyl. 5 years later, Wendy is glad to see distributors facing harsher punishment.
The fact that they admitted that the pill killed Blaine, yet it wasn't a murder charge, I think would have made me feel a little bit better.
But Jefferson County District Attorney Keith Giblin says starting September 1st, that will change.
Governor signed into an enactment, House Bill 6, which carries where a prosecutor, a state prosecutor, can charge a person for murder for distributing fentanyl-laced drugs, which results in someone's death. It carries a minimum of 15 years.
The DEA has hired former U.S. Attorney Britt Featherson to be a prosecutor. Featherson says the law will also require first responders to keep records of people who overdose.
Law enforcement can use that data to determine is there a batch of bad pills in a community.
Jennifer Sawyer with Texas Treatment Services in Beaumont says fentanyl is invading communities.
They're cutting all kinds of drugs with it. People don't even know they're using it.
Today, Wendy continues to be an advocate for families, spreading the message that one pill can kill.
So we miss just seeing him do what he loved to do. And had a huge smile every time he walked through the door, big hug, big smile, just always brightened everybody's day.
Lawmakers also wanted to crack down on drunk drivers, and they did so with House Bill 393 called Bentleys Law. Alicia Nieves explained its impact.
Got married, but without my dad there to walk me down the aisle. I have 2 beautiful children, but I did so without my mother there to hold my hand.
Erin Crawford Bowers was too young to remember the crash that killed her parents. She was 6 months old at the time.
My father, Joe Allen Crawford, was driving us home, and my mother, Helen Leslie Crawford, was in the back seat along with my cousin.
They were on their way home from dinner when a drunk driver hit them head on.
My dad died instantly upon impact.
Her mother saw the car coming. She jumped in the front seat.
When she braced for that impact, it literally put a shield between me and the front of the car.
Erin was airlifted to a nearby hospital. Doctors weren't sure she'd make it through the night, but she did. Her brother, who was 14 at the time, would relive that night over and over.
Luckily, he wasn't in the car that night, but I always say that he died as well. That drunk driver killed my brother. It just took him 35 years, 11 months, and 18 days to succumb to those injuries, and we lost him by suicide in June of 2021.
When tragedy struck 38 years ago, help for DUI victims didn't exist. That's why Erin joined the fight to pass Bentleys Law. Beginning September 1st, anyone convicted of intoxication manslaughter will pay child support if they kill a parent with young children.
If we don't do something today to make a change in our society, this will become our kids' burden to bear.
Senate Bill 1551 makes failing to identify a criminal offense. That means if a driver fails to provide their driver's license or doesn't provide their name, date of birth, and address to an officer, they could be charged with a Class B or C misdemeanor. A number of new laws focus on Texas courts, like Senate Bill 402, which requires trial courts give preference to hearings and trials for murder and capital murder offenses in an effort to cut down on the backlog. House Bill 17 allows courts to remove district attorneys for misconduct if they choose to not prosecute a type of criminal offense under state law, or they instruct law enforcement to refuse to arrest individuals suspected of committing the type of offense. Senate Bill 372 makes it a criminal offense for anyone other than a judge or justice to release or leak a court decision. This is now a Class A misdemeanor. Senate Bill 599 would allow district and county clerks to carry a handgun to work. House Bill 2291 also allows some retired judges and justices to carry a handgun. Senate Bill 997 is also called the Kobe and Gianna Bryant Act. It makes it a crime to publish or release certain photographs of human remains by first responders, coroners, medical examiners, and certain other employees for a purpose other than an official purpose. A few changes drivers might notice as of September 1st. House Bill 1885 gives TxDOT the power to alter speed limits based on a road's conditions. For example, during construction or an ice storm, TxDOT can use the new variable speed limit system to temporarily change speed limits for a portion of a road or highway. The goal is to avoid situations like this one when icy roads caused a 133-car pileup. The altered speed limit would only be in effect when it's posted on signs notifying drivers of the change, and it can't be more than 10 miles under the regular speed limit. And if you own an electric vehicle, listen up. Senate Bill 505 means you'll have to pay an extra $200 when you register your car or renew your registration. Lawmakers argued those extra fees make up for the differences in gas taxes. There will be no mask mandates in Texas, no matter how many new cases of COVID we see in the state. Megan Reyna broke down Senate Bill 29.
I'm definitely seeing more cases in the last couple of weeks.
The numbers are there to prove it. COVID-19 cases are on the rise. According to Metro Health, around this time last month, Bexar County was recording around 700 cases. This past week, there's been nearly 2,000 cases. And in the small town of Runge, its school district was forced to close last week because too many staff members, including the superintendent, got sick. But Dr. Richard Neal from Castroville says there's no reason to panic.
It really doesn't bear any resemblance to the COVID we were seeing 2 years ago. The classic cases are fever, body aches, congestion, and just flu-like symptoms.
Even if local governments want to reinforce COVID mandates starting September 1st, they can't. In June, Governor Greg Abbott signed Senate Bill 29. It prohibits local governments from requiring COVID-related masks, vaccines, or business shutdowns. But it does not restrict private entities from enforcing their own rules. Dr. Neal says when it comes to masking, he mainly recommends it for his high-risk patients.
Certainly for high-risk individuals that are really immunocompromised, it's not a bad preventive step to take.
Dr. Neal says ultimately it's up to each person on what steps they're willing to take to stop the spread of COVID. However, he doesn't anticipate widespread masking.
I haven't admitted anybody with COVID in 2 years.
Megan Reyna, KINS 5.
House Bill 1193 prohibits a homeowners association from discriminating against residents based on method of payment, like a housing voucher under Section 8 and housing assistance. Finally, a new law could save you some money. Senate Bill 379 eliminates the sales tax on some family care items. Sarah Duran talked to one San Antonio mom who called the law a necessity in her home.
It's definitely good.
Ashley Hernandez finds the good in a new law she says will help her family. In her home, diaper changes are frequent to care for her 3 young children.
It is a lot of money that you spend on diapers.
To help cut costs, she receives assistance from the Texas Diaper Bank. The San Antonio-based nonprofit played a role in Senate Bill 379's passage.
It is going to eliminate the taxes on diapers, not only for babies, but also for the adults that use adult diapers.
The bill also eliminates taxes on wipes, maternity clothes, breast pumps, baby bottles, and feminine hygiene products such as tampons and pads. Texas Diaper Bank CEO Jorge Medina says tax savings for a family with diaper babies could be up to $100 and up to $300 for adults who use diapers.
Imagine being able to have that much more in your pocket.
The Texas Coalition of Diaper Banks will also receive funding to expand distribution. Medina says lawmakers passed a measure in the state budget to provide $2.8 million to help underserved areas.
This is going to make a big difference.
Just like the difference the nonprofit has made in Hernandez's life, this bill will be an added benefit for the single mother.
Just so grateful that they're actually thinking about us.
Whew, I know we have talked about dozens of new laws, but this doesn't even scratch the surface. Again, the legislature passed about 800 this year. This article includes more of the legislation going into effect on September 1st. We'll text it to you. All you have to do is text the word laws to 713-526-1111. Thanks for watching. I'm Brandy Smith.